The year is 2025. The world stands at a crossroads, with the future of Europe hanging in the balance. The world watches as the Ukrainian crisis deepens, a tragedy unfolding in the heart of Europe. Cities lie in ruins, and the human cost continues to rise. Yet across the Atlantic, a different narrative is being spun. The focus shifts from the devastation in Ukraine to the political maneuvers in the United States. Former U.S. President Donald Trump, once again a dominant force in American politics, has taken a controversial stance, one that has sent shockwaves through European capitals. His rhetoric is as polarizing as ever. Trump's position marks a stark departure from the established international consensus on the conflict. His words have not only confused but also angered many of America's traditional allies. He has publicly blamed Ukraine for the war, a stance that contradicts the widely held view of Russia as the aggressor. This narrative has been met with disbelief and outrage. This rhetoric, reminiscent of his earlier pronouncements on global affairs, has left many bewildered and deeply concerned. The implications of his statements are far-reaching. Adding fuel to the fire are Trump's overtures to Russia. His willingness to engage with Russian President Vladimir Putin has raised eyebrows and questions about his true intentions. His Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has engaged in direct talks with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, seemingly aimed at finding a negotiated settlement to the crisis. These talks, however, have been shrouded in secrecy. However, these talks have been conducted without the involvement of either Ukraine or America's European allies, raising serious questions about Trump's intentions and his commitment to transatlantic unity. The exclusion has not gone unnoticed. The exclusion of Europe from these crucial discussions has been met with alarm and consternation. European leaders feel sidelined and betrayed. European leaders, already grappling with the complexities of the Ukrainian crisis, now find themselves sidelined in a matter of paramount importance to their own security and stability. The stakes have never been higher. This perceived slight has further strained transatlantic relations, already frayed by years of Trump's unpredictable foreign policy. The future of the alliance hangs in the balance as Europe and America navigate these turbulent times. Trump's defenders argue that his approach is not about abandoning Ukraine, but about pursuing a pragmatic solution to a complex geopolitical problem. They believe that the current strategy is unsustainable, and that a new approach is necessary to bring about lasting peace and stability in the region. By engaging in direct dialogue with Russia, they hope to find a middle ground that can prevent further bloodshed and economic turmoil. They point to the failures of past interventions and the need to avoid further escalation. Historical examples, such as the prolonged conflicts in the Middle East, serve as cautionary tales of how military interventions can spiral out of control, leading to unintended consequences and prolonged suffering for civilian populations. They argue that engaging with Russia, however distasteful it may seem, is the only way to prevent a wider conflict. Diplomacy, they assert, is a tool that must be used even with adversaries to avoid catastrophic outcomes. The goal is to create a framework for coexistence that respects the sovereignty of all nations involved. However, critics view Trump's actions as a dangerous capitulation to Russian aggression, a repeat of the appeasement policies that proved so disastrous in the face of Nazi Germany. They argue that history has shown the perils of conceding to authoritarian regimes, which often interpret such gestures as signs of weakness and opportunities to expand their influence. They argue that by blaming the victim and negotiating with the aggressor, Trump is emboldening Putin and undermining the rules-based international order. This approach, they warn, could lead to a breakdown in global norms that have maintained relative peace and stability since the end of World War II. The potential consequences of Trump's stance are far-reaching. Not only could it destabilize the region, but it could also have ripple effects that impact global security and economic stability. Allies may begin to question the reliability of the United States as a partner, leading to a realignment of international alliances. A negotiated settlement that involves territorial concessions to Russia would set a dangerous precedent, rewarding aggression and potentially encouraging further instability in Eastern Europe. Such a move could embolden other nations with territorial ambitions, leading to a more fragmented and volatile international landscape. It would also deal a severe blow to the credibility of the United States as a guarantor of European security. The trust that has been built over decades of cooperation and mutual defense could be eroded, making it more difficult to form cohesive strategies against common threats. Moreover, Trump's actions have exposed deep divisions within Europe itself. The continent is split between those who advocate for a hardline stance against Russia and those who believe in a more conciliatory approach. This division weakens the collective bargaining power of Europe on the global stage. While some countries, particularly those with strong historical ties to the United States, are hesitant to criticize Trump directly, others have been more vocal in their condemnation. This disparity in responses highlights the varying national interests and historical experiences that shape each country's foreign policy. This lack of unity within Europe only serves to weaken its position in the face of Russian assertiveness. A fragmented Europe is less capable of presenting a united front, making it more challenging to counteract aggressive moves by Russia and other potential adversaries. The European Union, already grappling with internal divisions and economic challenges, now faces perhaps its greatest test since its inception. The Ukrainian crisis, coupled with Trump's unpredictable stance, has laid bare the bloc's strategic vulnerabilities and its over-reliance on the United States for security. The initial reaction from European capitals was a mix of disbelief and dismay. Emergency meetings were convened, phone lines buzzed with frantic diplomacy, and a sense of crisis pervaded the corridors of power. The once unthinkable, a Europe forced to confront a major security threat largely on its own, suddenly seemed all too real. For many European leaders, the situation evoked unsettling historical parallels. The specter of the Cold War, with its stark division of Europe and the constant threat of conflict, loomed large. The memories of past betrayals, of promises broken and alliances tested, added to the sense of unease. The Ukrainian crisis has exposed the limitations of the European project. Despite decades of integration and cooperation, Europe remains a collection of nation-states with often divergent interests and priorities. This lack of unity, particularly in the realm of foreign and security policy, has hampered the EU's ability to respond effectively to the crisis. In the face of American retrenchment and Russian aggression, Europe finds itself at a crossroads. The shifting geopolitical landscape has prompted a re-evaluation of traditional alliances and defense strategies. French President Emmanuel Macron has emerged as a leading voice calling for a more assertive and independent European foreign policy. His speeches and diplomatic efforts have consistently emphasized the need for Europe to stand on its own feet. Macron's vision, dubbed strategic autonomy, envisions a Europe capable of defending its interests and values without relying on the United States. This concept is not just about military might, but also about political and economic independence. Macron's push for strategic autonomy is not new. He has been advocating for this approach for several years, arguing that Europe must be prepared to act independently in an increasingly multipolar world. He has long argued that Europe must take greater responsibility for its own security and destiny. This means not only increasing defense budgets, but also fostering a shared strategic culture among European nations. However, the urgency of his appeals has grown in the wake of the Ukrainian crisis and Trump's actions. The conflict in Ukraine has underscored the vulnerabilities in Europe's security architecture, while Trump's unpredictable foreign policy has shaken confidence in the Transatlantic alliance. The French president has called for increased European defense spending, urging member states to invest more in their military capabilities and reduce their dependence on American support. Greater cooperation among European militaries is another cornerstone of Macron's strategy. Joint exercises and shared training programs are seen as essential steps towards building a cohesive and effective European defense force. And the development of a truly European defense capability is crucial. This includes not only traditional military assets, but also advanced technologies and cyber defense mechanisms. He argues that only by pooling their resources and coordinating their efforts, can European nations hope to deter aggression and defend their interests in an increasingly uncertain world. This collective approach is seen as the best way to ensure stability and security for the continent. Macron's vision has gained traction among some European leaders, particularly in Germany, where there is growing recognition of the need for a more capable European Union in the realm of security and defense. However, significant obstacles remain, not least the reluctance of some member states to cede sovereignty over defense matters to Brussels. The debate over strategic autonomy continues to be a contentious issue within the EU. As Europe navigates these challenges, the push for strategic autonomy represents a bold and ambitious effort to redefine the continent's role on the global stage. The outcome of this endeavor will shape the future of European security and its place in the world.